All right, well, now, what I'd ask everybody to do today is if you would please join me in giving my personal thanks to Dr. Kicklighter today for honoring us with this class and, of course, putting up with my nonsense. Now, you may remember we started this class off with oh, we're not getting all of it there. Come on, just get it up there for me. We started this class off with Edith Hamilton's famous book, and you may remember this. I think I got it in junior high, and it did cost 50 cents at that time. Well, I think what I found is the 2018 version of this book, and I'd like to show that to you right now. You may notice that Perseus is looking very handsome. You also might notice that there's been a slight increase in the price, too, from the original 50 cents. So, now it is my pleasure to present a history professor of mythological portions, Dr. Joseph Kicklighter.
Unbelievable. Thank you, Frank. You have outdone yourself. I don't like to talk about that, but it's godlike, they say. But we'll keep that to ourselves. The idea, though, of thanks to both you and to Frank is, I hope, very obvious. I appreciate you all coming here on the weeks, every week. I always look forward to it. And, of course, as I've already said to a member of the class, you're all to receive very high grades. So let's not forget that in case you haven't done your evaluation yet. So I just want that understood, that there is no harshness. It's all going to be good. So even if I have to compete with 8 ladies who want lunch and our bridge players, yes, some people leave in the middle, and that's always very sad for me. If I had my way, I would block the door. You know, I have a fantasy of that, but I know the freedom doesn't permit me to do those things. So I understand that within certain limits we have freedom, which is a segue, of course, to Aristotle and human reason. I just wanted to end our discussion of Aristotle with bringing out my favorite Aristotelian, an old friend to many of you, that inimitable saint, Thomas Aquinas. Because if we ever wonder where do we meet Aristotle outside a dry philosophy class, it's, of course, in the teachings of Catholicism, of all things. It's very odd, but those individuals are really quite related. Aquinas, a monk of the 13th century, was a devout Aristotelianism in the midst of his venerable Catholicism, assuming that God was the ultimate reason for all that exists, and utilizing Aristotelian logic and thought to explain Christianity and God's plans for the world, which I find very fascinating if you think about it, because obviously there was nothing Christian about Aristotle, but the two of them meshed, in Thomas Aquinas' mind, very well indeed. Now, obviously, Aristotle would lose his luster after the scientific revolution of the 17th century. But in general, in the Catholic world at least, the relationship between Aristotle and Thomas Aquinas has continued throughout the centuries. Today's topic is going to be Greek drama and theater. But again, this is a preview of coming attractions, since Alexander the Great is the topic upon which we will be so focused come next term. He is absolutely fascinating, and often we get the idea that he and Aristotle were just close buddies. I'm not sure how true that would have been, but he was one of Alexander's tutors. Philip's family certainly would have known Aristotle's family, and so it is not a surprise that this relationship existed. That Alexander being Macedonian and Aristotle being Macedonian, and I'm sure this for a teacher would have been a primo job, I would think. And he did have a family. I mean, Aristotle had children to pay for. So, you know how that goes. And you think this would have been a really, really great job. You'd say, oh, but he's so worried about political science and botany. Yeah, but that doesn't pay the bills. But tutoring Alexander the Great, I think, would have been a very, very comfortable position. Now, I did want you to see that, though. We were just talking in the back about the Renaissance, and so how about that? You can't beat Raphael when you're looking for a classically themed work. And when you see that work, and in the middle, of course, you see Plato and Aristotle, the men right there in the center, and you're thinking, well, they really did understand. Now, Raphael's a good Catholic, but you don't see any Catholic saints in the middle, do you? You see these two Greek philosophers. I rest my case. They had enormous influence, and in those scores of figures, there are many people of great scholarship and thought, but who more than Plato and Aristotle based on their writings. Again, the school of Athens, and the dates, which will be very familiar to students of the Renaissance. And you say, some of you, I'm sure you're thinking, Luther's coming, yeah. Well, that's that party pooper. That's not part. I don't think he would be exactly signing up to subsidize the works of Raphael, but we of the Italian Catholic set, we can have our time too. And again, only 6 years from the 95 Theses, if you're counting the years, and I hope you are, that and think how very close that is between Raphael and the 95 Theses. It's just wild, isn't it? Okay. I think with such a group of educated folk, I do not have to speak of the significance of Greek theater. Could there be anyone who is not well aware, both in present times or in ancient, the significance of the writings and playwrights that are encompassed by the term Greek theater? And what is always surprising to me, and I'm sure to many others, is how little we have of them. Even though what we have is amazing, and I know, because some of you told me, that even in recent times you've been to one, as for example our production, did you go here? Production of Antigone, which is an amazing bit of theater, and others. And of course, my collection that I'm going to be talking about is my own and somewhat eclectic, but all of us could have a different one. In general, I can make only generalizations, which I will attempt to do. And I always would say to a class, you know, in a world without movies and television and all the rest, one can only imagine the excitement of the Athenians and others who would be attending a performance given the nature of entertainment. And remember, as far as I'm aware, this is before the time of the Romans and their gladiatorial contests, and I know people like all that sort of thing. But this would have been quite a spectacle in and of itself. Without going into too much detail, it seems that music and theater are inextricably bound. And the connection to the god Dionysius, the god of revelry and sordid activity, shall we say, is no doubt inextricable. And I would say, in the context of some years back, perhaps these would be R-rated. I'm not sure that if anything is R-rated anymore, but we all remember when things were, you just say, this is just not something for you. We'll just come another time. But, I mean, this is strictly the sort of thing that I used to say. Now, you students, sometime later, when you're older, you can see this, and they would all give that knowing look like, okay, Grandpa, I'm ready. So, you know, it's sort of like the idea is there is adult content and much that is associated with Dionysius. You may call him Bacchus if you wish. But you get the idea that this has all kinds of implications of secular fun and romps, if you like that word. Romps, yeah, I love that word, romp. Because it's associated with something, dare I say it, lurid, perhaps vulgar. Because it is of the people. This isn't some kind of get-together of Platonic people who are saying, well, what is real? I think these people are out for some excitement, and they're going to get it at a theater. We know 4 playwrights by name, and we know a limited number of works by each of them. Of some of them, like, for example, Euripides, we know virtually nothing about their own personal lives. Obviously, they lived and died, and obviously they wrote a number of works. And the works are, of course, what has to substitute for any knowledge about them personally. Sad but true. They cover the period of the glories of Athens, meaning essentially the 4th century, throughout that period. In fact, the first one we're going to talk about was himself a veteran and actually fought the Persians. So that means that we are really dealing with situations that are quite contemporary with political events that we have been talking about of late. This is an interesting construct of what an ancient theater would have been like if you've been to Greece or even to some Roman ruins, you might have seen some of the type of theaters that were constructed, and you see the whole model of the theater in the round and the way that the people would have been there. They were very musical, very musical. There was little dialogue. It was mostly a monologue, and then the chorus spent much time singing and dancing, a display of that sort. And so you kind of get the sense of lots of evolution to the modern form in which we anticipate that plays will take place. But they were all in competition, which is an interesting aspect. Oh, bills, by the way, if you're worried about money, bills were paid by rich folks, which is the way we think it ought to be, because that's why they have all the money. And so then they need to be given it. I mean, look where we are right now. Look across the street, for goodness sakes. Thank goodness for rich folks, huh? So, yeah, we love them. And this means that we expect, in the case of the Athenians, you know, these CEOs of these olive businesses, they're going to be putting it out, you know. They are expected to provide all of this, meaning paying for actors and musicians and all the rest. So that would explain the money. I just find that very interesting, that this is not coming out of the official Athens city budget, that this is going to be something that rich people do and expected to do it. It's not those nice little things like give from your heart or any of those. Forget that. You do it. If you want to hold up your head in the Athenian Rich People's Club, you are supporting these things. And you know why? Because regular folks are going. And regular folks mean the masses. And do we want the masses to be happy? Yes, we do. Because they are not helots, folks. These are citizens. And you have this very high position socially and economically, but that's going to cost you. And this is the entertainment. I mean, I just find it absolutely fascinating to think about all the people being there, and of course, commenting on the plays. I don't mean like critics exactly, but shouting their approval. I don't think a production could have been very quiet, and you could expect the masses of folk to go outside and say, oh, I'm afraid my voice is a bit loud, let me. I think they really express themselves in either negative or positive terms. And that may be why we know certain names and don't know others. It's possible, I suppose, that some of the ones we don't know about had no greatest hits. It happens. I mean, you know, I've seen Broadway plays close within a week, and, you know, it's just, it's mighty sad. But that's, in the world of thespians, that's the way it goes. Anyway, the use of the music, of course, is ongoing, but it will be lessened, as will be the role of the chorus. And as more individuals will become involved, and more plot and character development. It's also, I guess, significant to note before we go on that the themes of most of the Greek plays we have are mythological. Now, was everyone an Edith Hamilton in that particular, did everyone carry around a compendium of myths? Well, I've read both sides of that one. Some people say, well, people probably were familiar with it. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe they knew it in general. In other words, they were lacking all the specifics. They weren't ready to be tested on it, maybe. But the idea is, if they would have been thoroughly familiar with the various myths, I guess it depends on the crowd. But the playwrights themselves found these myths worthy of being developed with their own interpretations. And so they use these interpretations with the characters and themes as they wish to make them. And I see some of you are very interested in that 17th century art, which is very interesting. For those who are students of the Renaissance art period, this will be quite an afternoon, because I have, you like this one? I've got lots more coming, because all my artwork is from that particular period. Lots and lots of gods and fairies, and they're all in great shape. Every one of them has been to the gym. So you can be assured of that. No surprise. Aeschylus is the veteran I promised you. He's number one, veteran of the Persian Wars. He actually was the only one who wrote on a, what will I call it, factual theme. He wrote a play about Xerxes. Remember him, the Persian king? It's not flattering. Okay? It's not, oh, what a great man was he, and he loved his family and loved dogs and children, you know. No, it's all about, how does Scripture put it? A fool goeth before his pride fall. Yeah, thank God for the. That idea, though, of Xerxes, and that we've seen already in Herodotus using a historical work. But Xerxes actually makes it, Aeschylus actually makes it into a theatrical format. However, this is the play of plays. It is the only trilogy that we have, which means that it is a collection of 3 plays with a developing theme. I'm sure there were other trilogies, just lost over the centuries. So this is the one we have. And what a juicy story it tells. These Greek families. To start with, we go back to everybody's favorite, Homer's Iliad and the Odyssey, because it is a treasure chest of themes. We remember, I trust, that Agamemnon was the leader of the Greeks going against Troy. He was the brother of Menelaus, who was the husband of Helen. Agamemnon is married to the lovely Clytemnestra, who happens to be the sister of Helen. I know, think of the reunion, think of the family values, the love, the sharing, sort of. But we got that straight. Aegisthus, he's coming up. See him down there? Happens to be the brother of Agamemnon, first cousin. And he has some interests. And finally, Orestes is the son of Agamemnon and Clytemnestra. So much for these particular characters, because we will get to even more coming up. As you can tell from the trilogy's common title, the Orestia, it's all about Orestes. And this is Aeschylus. He's the first. How do you like that? As I say, if you don't like this kind of artwork, you're going to be in pain by the time I finish, because this 16th and 17th century, it's a lot of these folks. Good shape, not that many clothes, and all in modes of confusion. And we are in terrible confusion with Agamemnon. As you know, if we want to sail, we need a good wind. And what if the gods are mad with you? Cut off the winds. Agamemnon was in trouble. He prayed to the gods, and the gods told him, if you would like a good wind, so you can take your fleet to Troy, you've got a spare daughter, and we need her. Her name was Iphigenia, and I know this is awful, isn't it? So he says, honey, can you come with me? Sure, Daddy. Yeah, trying to build this up, into a family. And said, what have you got for me? Oh, a man named Achilles wants to meet you. I think he may be thinking about marriage. And she says, oh, thanks, Daddy. Yeah, that's not very nice, is it? But they got her running, because Achilles was quite a catch. You can imagine. So, her father lied to her. Yes, I know. Paternal deceit. So, Iphigenia's dead, and great winds. Off we go to Troy. Her mother, Clytemnestra, is not pleased, as I don't think any mother would be. Said, I'm going to remember this. And she'll have quite a bit of time to wait, 10 years to be exact, while he's over there leading the Greeks in their ultimately successful struggle against the Trojans, as we recall. All of this I do as preface to the real action. Because when the play opens, or when the whole trilogy opens, it's like homecoming. And yeah, that kind of homecoming. Because they will be out there at the walls of the city and thinking the king is back, the chorus, the king is back, but we're worried that things at home may not be as good as they should be, and Clytemnestra is saying, he's going to get it. That no good scum. All of that. So we're ready for it, but the irony, of course, of the king and homecoming. Oh, hon, hi, we're back. We crushed Troy. We're so excited. We're just glad to be here, and we want to honor the veterans. All that. There's so much irony at the beginning of this, it just kills me, because that she has plans. And her plans are aided by her special friend. And you say, but yes, she's an adulteress. Can you blame her? I mean, with a husband like that? The individual, of course, is the cousin, and they're kissing cousins, as we like to say in the South. And this kissing cousin, see, he's right there. Now, I guess there is a king wannabe. See, if Achilles is dead, I can be king. So why don't I just seduce his wife? Hi, Cousin Clytemnestra. Could you help me with this reading? We want to study some more. Yeah. I think this is just awful. It gets worse. I mean, And you see him there. He's home from the wars. Hi, hon. It's good to be back. How are the kids? I mean, the ones that are surviving. It's sort of like you're just so excited. And, of course, I've got plans. So she gets him. He's dead as can be. Now, the great thing back in those days is you didn't get killed out on the stage. They didn't get excited about watching people die back then. You just heard the screaming. And then they might bring out the corpse, and they say, oh, the king is dead. I can't believe it. What a terrible... and all of that, and the chorus can get all excited. Again, people just didn't need it. I guess we just, as time went on, we just want more of the real stuff. Some folks do. In any event, now what happens? Well, this sinister pair who have eliminated the king are now sort of in charge. But the gods say to her son, Orestes, your mother killed your daddy. You gonna let her get away with it? What kind of son are you? Oh gosh, what should I do? You need to take justice. If you're any kind of a son, that is. Do I have to? Yeah, you pretty much do. The next play in which Orestes kills his mother is quite dramatic. Those of you who've seen this will know, because Clytemnestra will pull every string she can to emphasize her maternal status, and says, I did give you the milk, I did all this. Now, I don't think this is really a way to be treating your mother. And you realize feels he's a man on a mission. And so she's not going to get out of it. Oh, the boyfriend's going to get it too, don't worry. Okay, if you think she's going to get it all alone, no. He's going down. But the main one, I think, is the mother in this case. Because look who we're going to meet. Welcome, Furies. The Furies are interesting. I don't know if in Greek mythology, as opposed to Romantic art, if the Furies exactly look like that, because they don't look that bad. I mean, they look like they're in a real bad mood, but I think they're right attractive. Anyway, the fact is, though, they're out there just like that. You see, the minute that knife goes into that breast, those Furies are lined up, and Orestes is going to get it. You say, wow, is anybody happy in these plays? I don't think so. I think everybody's got some serious trouble, because he's got a very serious trouble, but he does look good. You've got to admit that. So he's in excellent physical condition, but in general, I think this would really be disturbing if you had the Furies after you. Now, again, literally they are chasing you, but I think in a figurative way, they represent the forces of conscience that won't leave poor Orestes alone. How do you like that? Isn't that wild? I just found it this morning. I'm so excited. There are just all these little treasures everywhere. Anyway, he will end up by the Furies being chased into the Athenian area. And you say, what a nice surprise. Going to Athens, huh? Oh, yeah. Subsidized by the Chamber of Commerce, because more or less The idea is that Apollo, the god Apollo, who says, you know, you're being punished that way by the Furies, shows in a way how serious killing your mother is. But of course, her deed was mighty bad too. So I'm really torn between what side to be on or whether to be on a side at all. I tell you what, let me refer you to my sister and the good people of Athens. And if you're wondering who Sis is, let me point out it's Athena. Yes. There she is. And what are we doing? We're taking Orestes and his Furies. We're taking them to court for the killing of his mother, Clytemnestra. And is it right that he is being tormented in this way? Very interesting the way that Aeschylus is going to end this. Because Athena will say, well, these are some very serious misdeeds. You know, killing the husband and, yeah, killing the mother, matricide, as we say. That's not good. But it's the whole system of justice. That's the real problem. I'm sure everybody in the chorus will go, yeah. Because, of course, look at who's standing around. You say, everyone has white hair. How interesting. Do you think it's white? Because of wisdom, yes. They're all Athenian elders. So they're all wise as they are listening to Athena's verdict. The taller one, I suspect, is supposed to be Apollo, and there's poor little Orestes in the green outfit. And then you see the Furies who don't look nearly as nice. Yeah, they sort of, gone downhill, but that's just rude. But anyway, there's Athena, and she says, tell you what we're going to do. We are going to develop in Athens a new center for what is right and wrong. And what will it be based on? Vengeance? No. Those days are over. That is the past. From now on, our system will be based on justice and reason. Yes, exactly. And that's exactly what Athenian audiences are supposed to do. You just did it for me. Everybody is going to realize that the old idea of, an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, basically that, that was yesterday. That's so 5th century. So now we are going to go with what is rational and just. Furies, I've got something to tell you. What is it, Athena? Because they're snarling by now. A, you're going to have a makeover. And B, you will be beacons of Athenian justice, bringing in individuals to get and where is this justice going to occur? See all the white-haired folks. The Areopagus. Remember the Areopagus? Review. The upper house of the Athenian assembly. They will try the great cases. You're a homicidal type? Okay. Come on in to the Areopagus. Why don't we just kill you? That wouldn't be fair. Let's give you a trial first, okay? And then decide. That is the idea then. That's what you come out with the Orestia in, that Athens now will represent the new justice, the new fairness in a legal system. I mean, that isn't going to do anything for Agamemnon and Clytemnestra, right? They're gone. But certainly going to help Orestes. And the Furies are going to get new jobs. And new looks. So all of that is, I find, a very interesting twist on this story of Agamemnon, because believe me, that was one unhappy family. They had lots of problems, Agamemnon and his crew. Believe me, I have expurgated this. There's lots more where that came from. So if you want the whole unfiltered story of Agamemnon's family, you got some lurid reading ahead, folks. I promise you. And it's not happy. No Walt Disney there. Oh, my, my, my. I picked this particular advertisement for the play because I think Sophocles' plays have such modern, even contemporary themes and ideas that have been used by the public. I think this is probably from 30 or 40 years ago, maybe in Paris. But again, while they are written by Greeks and deal with Greek themes, they always have these universal stories or themes to share. As many of you probably have heard, one of the most famous productions of Antigone occurred in 1944 or 43, Paris, under German watch, because it had a lot to say, I'm sure, to the Parisians who were under German control at that point. It's amazing, isn't it, that they were allowed to do this by the Germans. In any event, Antigone, a princess of Thebes, and of course, she is the daughter of the equally famous Oedipus. Antigone, I might as well mention it now because we're going to see so many examples of it, is yet another example of strong women. And you're saying, where are all these strong women in real life? Well, that is part of the ironic nature of the Greek plays. Women are rarely allowed to be strong and independent. I think we mentioned that in Sparta, perhaps, they seem to have unusual kinds of rights and opportunities. But even there, folks, they still were not participating in the public life. That said, I guess one can do a lot of things in theater that one doesn't do in real life. And certainly that seems to be true of these marvelous figures like Antigone. The story of Antigone goes basically like this. Her brother violates the law of the king. Antigone is a princess. And when her brother is, shall we say, in violation of royal authority, and he gets killed in battle, the king will not allow Antigone's brother to be buried properly. You see Antigone in this advertisement actually trying to cover her brother. Because, you know, when I first knew about this play, I thought it meant something about Antigone would go out and shovel out a grave spot. Nothing of the sort. It meant simply that she symbolically buried him by covering him rather than letting the animals get him. This was in violation of her uncle the king's order. And so she must be punished. Significantly, she is engaged to the king's son, and so all of this will lead to a series of, let me see, how many casualties come out of this play? Antigone will be gone, his fiance's mother, etc., etc. It's strictly dominoes. Sophocles' idea here is there is a higher law than the king's law. Oh, there will be quite a soliloquy before King Creon, in which Antigone will express this view of following the higher law. And again, just think about those Nazis. And think about, talking about all that, if there had been some Germans in there, supporters of Hitler. You know, you just find it amazingly courageous that went on to say there's a higher law than human law, and I am following that. And interestingly, I didn't mention her, but I want to. She has a sister, Antigone, Ismene, and she's to represent, what is the old expression? You gotta go along to get along, or get along to go along, whatever. The idea is that Ismene will tell Antigone, now let's not get out of control. These things happen, but he is the king, and Antigone will have none of it. So it's an interesting conflict in case you're ever wondering about the portrayal of strong women. He's not saying that everybody is like this. And Antigone will pay for her acts. No question about that. But Antigone has other roles to play as well. If you were the offspring of Oedipus the king, so would you. I mean, you say, Papa, we have really got troubles in our family. You betcha. Oedipus Rex. Yes, Sigmund Freud loved him. We all know that. But other than Dr. Freud, there are other interests in this particular character. Oedipus the king, and again you see this fine 18th century artwork, was very close to his children. Unfortunately, the children were thanks to his mother. Yeah. He was, yes, exactly. Dr. Freud, you got it. Yes. He was married to his mother. Ugh. So, creating a special generation, yeah, among whom was Antigone. Sophocles will write in details, and again, this is part of this mythological group. And the play, Aristotle considered this the most perfect drama. You know, Aristotle was something of a drama critic. You said, but I thought he was a botanist. The master of those who know. Never forget that. You're entitled to a break now of 5 minutes. Okay? Use it, and good luck in the kitchen for those who need it. And keep those trumps coming. Okay. Can I start? Okay. All right. Hurry, do the lights and make them feel bad if they're not in place on time. Come on. Another opening, another show. Showtime. I know. But again, Frank's got me frightened about revolutionary fervor, demanding their rights or something. Have to placate them. Maybe write them a new constitution or something. All right, so we've got Antigone, and of course, Sophocles. These great characters who end up, yes, babies are so cute, aren't they? But you say, what is so special about this one? Well, oh dear, you're so nice. What would I do without? Thank you. Isn't she wonderful? Jocasta, who will be Oedipus' wife, was also his mother. And of course, as we know, and the reason that Aristotle said this is the perfect tragedy is if you read it, perhaps in college or wherever you come across it, the unspilling of the truth to the character Oedipus is an incredibly painful situation to watch as he's there with his wife and gradually discovers that she is his mother, and how he was found even though he had originally been born to her by her first husband, etc. The painting then is, as you can see, again, very classic in nature, and is meant merely to tell you about how this will be illustrated in future days. But I think it's also so that you can see that the themes of these Greek plays continue on into the succeeding centuries. It's not like they sort of die out and suddenly we revive them in modern times. I don't think that's true at all. I was just talking with someone about the fact that the Romans, in many cases, wrote their own versions of some of these plays, as did classical authors who don't mind necessarily imitating the masters. In this case, people like Aeschylus and Sophocles. Oedipus, in horror at what he had done, will blind himself. I'm sure seeing the suicidal body of his wife mother will end up dead, and then Antigone comes back into the story, wandering with him about until the end of his life. As he, of course, is kind of using most of his times on stage to explore what has happened, the tragedy of his humanity, and the great sorrow that he feels for what has happened. As a matter of fact, he will even find out that he killed his father when they had, as many of us do, altercations with someone who was in another chariot, and they met at some sort of one of those four-way stops. And certain young people, I won't mention any names, have a way of not yielding. Again, I won't name names, but they attend a university of some size that apparently defeated the University of Georgia last Saturday. Not calling any name. But they didn't yield. And I wanted to get out and do a citizen's arrest, but decided that I would just say, no problem. But that is irritating. So I understand how Oedipus feels. I'm just glad I didn't have to kill my father. Again, you said, but he didn't know. I know. And he didn't know he was marrying his mother. But he did. And they had a nice family. So the circumstances are very tragic indeed. And again, as one follows this situation, one is able to appreciate this story and how it unfolds. This is not, I must say, a trilogy like that of Aeschylus. We sort of put it together with the different plays. So I wanted that to be clear. It's not a true trilogy, and you can see the themes are not all interspersed, except they deal with the same characters. But Antigone, the play, Oedipus Rex, or in some versions I see it Oedipus Tyrannus, or this play, which is Oedipus at Colonia. So these are dealing with the various characters and somewhat similar themes, but not carried through like those entitled the Orestia. Euripides, how about him? He is the rebel among the three writers of tragedy. It was said he got fewer awards, and that is probably because, as we used to say in my youth, he was not of the establishment. He was an individual who wrote in ways that must have offended many of the leading citizens of the community. He was very controversial. It does not appear he was a veteran. That's all to say that we know virtually nothing about him personally, except his plays are, I would say, the most performed of the three. The characters are the most human. There are very few gods, and even when there are, they're usually merely expressions of some sort of human flaw. The situations, if you'll forgive the sort of French philosophy reference, they're kind of existential. I know. I hate to throw around that sort of thing, but I think it is, in a certain way, humans are in these situations, and he seems to be very, what would I say, agnostic maybe. In the situations prior, it's sort of like you've run afoul somehow of the gods or something like that, or the gods love you and so you get this particular boon. But I think with Euripides, you're in these situations, and it's just unfortunate. But the gods aren't going to get you in it, and the gods aren't going to get you out. You just have to deal with it. Whoa. And here is a perfect example. And talk about a strong woman. Hell hath no fury, right? Medea was a non-Greek princess who helped, unfortunately for her, a great Greek hero by the name of Jason. And she does so. Jason, you remember the Argo, the golden fleece. And he decides, well, you are very attractive, you were nice to me, but you're not Greek. You're a barbarian. He says, I know, honey, but I love you so much. Oh, God, yes. So you can come with me. Oh, thank you. So Medea and he have their family. You say, but that's discriminatory. I would say so, because you realize she will never be a full wife. You can say concubine, to use the euphemism, I guess, but they have, I guess people do in this day and age, their family. I mean, the whole thing, they're just not married. Because a Greek and a barbarian. Yeah. Medea then thinks she is very happy, unknowing that her husband, Jason, is out looking for somebody better. Oh, You say, but that story is as old as the hills. Well, this variation is one of particular interest because he is looking for a princess, a Greek princess, and finds her. Coming home to Medea, he says something to the effect of, you know, this has been a special time we've had. You know, I'm really, what great years we've had. Yeah, this has been really nice. I'll never forget you, you wild and crazy barbarian. You know, you'll always be one of my favorite barbarians. You know, that kind of thing. You think, what? Now, get the kids ready. We're out of here. She says, oh, I see. So we need to make some changes, huh? Okay, I can arrange that. And she does. She will arrange the death of both Jason's fiancée and then, before his eyes, kill his children. This is not, well, there she is with her knife, and there the little ones. She says, now, how do you like that? I would not call this a happy play. In fact, I would say it's rather unhappy, but again, existential relationships and, shall we say, the wrong way to end them, okay? Because this definitely did not turn out well for any party. I mean, I suppose Medea, you know, she makes it off in a, I think the chariot is driven by some sort of animals up into the sky, say, I'm out of here, losers, you know, that kind of thing. So you get at the end, she's gone, but she's lost her children as she lost Jason. So it's not altogether happy, but when you're divine, I guess you have some things going for you, right? Quite a play. How do you like this illustration? This, I sort of like to go through old programs from theater productions and different colleges, or even Broadway plays. I saw them. But I thought this one was right interesting. The Trojan Women is another very popular play that I've seen at Auburn and seen elsewhere. And the idea is that if we want to think of Euripides as being, and how is this for loading it with 20th century ideas, a pacifist and a feminist. And I think, pushing, maybe that is a little premature, just a little. But let us say the Trojan Women, which was done at about the same time. Get this. Remember Thucydides? Yes, you do. Remember the dialogue that I told you about when the Greeks, the Athenians, were coming into the city that was a Spartan city and said, now you people, you better get on our bandwagon or else you're going to be in lots of trouble. And they said no, and then they destroyed the city and enslaved the women. All of that is enough to know that they were performing this play at that time, which I think you will admit really stretches the limits of democracy. Because could you imagine the people in that audience who might have been wives, children, or parents of Athenian veterans? I just wonder what they would have been thinking during that. I don't know. You know, I guess we'll never know. But in any event, now you know why he didn't win a lot of awards because of his plays. The play, in essence, talks about what happened to the women of Troy after the defeat. And, of course, this would be the Queen of Troy on down. They were all to be shipped to Greece as slaves. The significance of the play, of course, is that into the crowd walks Miss Helen. and she is not after most popular woman in the group. And she will, of course, have to deal with all the hostility of the Trojan women. Remember, she's not really, they always say Helen of Troy. She's not really Helen of Troy. She's really Helen of Sparta, if you want to do it from her true husband. But she's there with them because I don't think her husband's too happy with her right now, remember? She did run off. They made me run off. I love you so, you know, but I don't think that's working so well. But now she's there with these people, and they are discussing, why did these men go to war? It was all so stupid, all so senseless and inane, and look where we are now. Suddenly the Greek troops come in, and there we see Andromache, that is Hector's wife. And Hector, of course, is the son of the king of Troy. So the little boy is Hector's son, Andromache's son. And little boys have a way of becoming big men. So we got to kill them. This, of course, is all part of the play. I mean, if there is a happy moment in a Euripides play, I don't guess I've seen it. It just goes from sad to tragic, and all with that theme of war, which makes it even more interesting. Now, here is one that I mentioned to some friends earlier. This, which will be used by the French later on, was called Hippolytus, and it deals with what if a young stepmother gets a passion for a stepson. And you say, that's not good. That's not good at all. And the husband, he seems real nice. And the boy's interested in hunting. That's a good habit. That's a good thing for a boy. You know, hunting season, deer, you know, whatnot. So, but the queen, the young stepmother, has other interests. And I don't know if he's saying there with a hand, you know, no, Mommy, I've got to go hunting. I love my dogs. I don't know if it's that, but whatever it is, you can see the stepmother is not happy. Of course, we conveniently put in the curse of the gods, but this is Phaedra, and the son is Theseus, and the go-between who started all this up, because the queen Phaedra had just said something. See the woman behind Phaedra? She's the nurse, and she said, oh, I hate to see you so unhappy. And then she goes to Hippolytus and says, you know your stepmom? She thinks you're hot. And you say, but this isn't going to work out well. No, it isn't. It's going to work out very poorly, actually. When, in fact, we know that Theseus will accuse his son of raping his wife. In a fit of anger, he will kill his son, only to find out later that his wife had lied. And so we have to go through all of that. It's not a happy play. However, it did have its moments. When, as a youth, when I reached a certain age, I went to see a movie that I wanted, you remember? Went to see over and over again. I cannot tell you how many times I saw it. I knew that do any of you remember this? No, not at all. Remember? It was Greek. Fresh off Psycho, Tony Perkins was, yes, he had pulled that shower curtain once too often, and he was ready to play boyfriend. I'm sorry, stepmother, I've got to go hunt boars. But in this case, it was not a great success, but the music is wonderful. And if you have not reached the period of your life that you're ready to watch these R-rated films, if you're still on the PG, then that's okay. This was a long time ago, so I think it will pass muster. If you think you're seeing some kind of Onassis expose, I think you're probably on the right path, because the fellow, the father, has all aspects of being another Airy, if you get my drift. And Melina McCurry was just gorgeous, just beautiful in this. And yes, did they have troubles throughout? You will not need popcorn for this, okay? I promise. The music, all of it is just... I started to bring me, I said, I just won't do that. I just said, that's just too much. Because we need to keep this classical and not bring it to 20th century lurid youth like I was watching things like that when I should have been studying. I think I was 19, yeah. I was in college. I don't want you to think I was seeing things like that in high school. No, I would never have been permitted. But, so I was off in the privacy of a dorm with other bad boys. So, Aristophanes. And you'll note I very carefully put extremely popular among the masses, because the masses did enjoy things that were, shall we say, off color. And when I say vulgar, and I say bringing up references to things that are vulgar, things that I think when most of us were in school, I have to say now, anything goes, but back in the day, you just didn't say certain things or bring up references to certain things. And I've accepted that those barriers are now removed. But at one time, Aristophanes' plays used to be very shocking. But all the more reason that Aristophanes' audiences would have enjoyed them all the more. Again, he's the only one we have who wrote comedies. People say sometimes, well, he must have hated philosophers, or he hated this or that or the other. Someone has suggested he was just detached. He liked to ridicule everything and everybody. Very impartial. We know people like that. They don't play favorites. But again, let's hear it for Athenian democracy. The clouds, and I will not comment on the vulgar way in which those individuals, yes. So we'll let that go by and know that someone named Socrates, I wonder who that could be, was head of an institution called the Thinkery. So individuals can go to him and he can create a philosophical explanation for anything. So one father who has a son who can't get a job sends the fellow to the Thinkery and he says, well, he can teach you how to reason and there'll probably be a job for you. Clearly ridiculing sophists, if you remember them. You know, professional thinkers. Until I think they teach the boy, and you see how Socrates comes down from the clouds. He says, oh, I've discovered that the gods are really clouds, and I have a rational explanation for that. All of this nonsense, and you know, that's kind of blasphemy, you know, if you're thinking about the ancient traditional religions, but he got away with it. Now, I made the point here, which sounds very dramatic, that it may have been significant in the trial. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But I would hate for things like that to be making the rounds at the end of the Peloponnesian War, when a lot of Athenian citizens are sort of down on thinkers. And then he is wrongly associated here with sophists and ridiculed. in a certain way. In the event, that is one of the most important of his productions, of many, but it is quite vulgar. It's just the only word to use, vulgar. Of course, none of us can ever forget Lysistrata, and I thought the reactions and the faces tell the whole story. But the idea of being anti-war with the Athenian women getting together with Spartan women seems almost too good to be true, and it was. But it does appear that using satirical comedy allowed Aristophanes to get away with a lot. Because I'm not aware that he ever experienced any kind of problem from the government or censure of that sort, which is kind of amazing. I mean, we have so many of his works. I mean, I'm sure he made his enemies. I wouldn't think the Socrates fan club would have exactly welcomed him in, after the kinds of things he said. He made all of Socratic ideas kind of like ridiculous, balderdash. And I don't think he used that name Socrates just, Joe, Bill, Socrates. I think he definitely used it purposefully. And this, of course, is not flattering. But again, I'm not sure he picks sides. I think he just likes to ridicule. Yeah. Do any of you, I don't know if anybody's old enough to remember, I used to love Mad magazine. Okay, I wasn't sure. I'm admitting a lot today, yes. Because there was a lot in there that's somewhat objectionable, but it was funny. And again, they didn't pick they would make fun of everything, weren't they? I mean, they were very, very open, shall we say. I remember one issue, particularly when it was a high school annual, and they had a guy who looked like some sort of a individual who was not a young scholar, let me put it that way. And they said, what is your class, graduation expression? He said, if I told you you had a beautiful body, would you put it against me? Or something like that. And I'm thinking, these sort of people, they are not students of the classics. But I think there are people around who probably did say things like that in, say, 1964. But that said, satire is fairly clear and definitely popular among people. Finally, note that philosophy in all forms of Aristotelian learning, as well as theater and architecture. In fact, as I used to always from my students, Carol, this is something you'll love, the whole core curriculum is one big theme on the Greeks. And instead of the adoring looks of love back at me, there were instead scowls and looks of, oh, shut up, don't bring that up again. But I think every part of our core curriculum is designed to express this enormous tradition of learning that comes from the Greeks, including my beloved history, lest we forget Herodotus and Thucydides, and we won't. But we also know, of course, that it will have many descendants to come, including the Romans, including the Christian world, and definitely Shakespeare. Thank you, Morris. That is definitely true. Are there barbarians? Well, non-Greeks, yes, and they have their civilizations also. I'm very sorry that I didn't have time to go into that, because it's interesting when you're thinking about this world, you're thinking, well, there was a Chinese civilization and there was an Indian civilization. If this were truly a world history course, you could be sure that all of this would come up. But if you're limiting it to the Greeks, we are thinking about the world primarily of Greece, with certain pockets going west or east. But what's going on in Europe right now? Not a whole lot. First of all, there is no Europe. There is just the territory that we would call the West. There are some Greek cities in the south, as in what we call Spain and France and Italy today, or Sicily. Other than that, of course, it's waiting for other peoples to come. I know you think I'm going to say Romans, but I'm not. Fooled you. First of all, we're going to get Carthaginians. Love the Carthaginians. So they will be arriving too. And I look forward to it and hope to see you in 2018. Thank you very much. I appreciate this. Appreciate it.